Hi, my name is Vincent, and my major claim is that violent video games, do not show any significant cause for youth to commit violent crimes. I'll be using three secondary claims to support it. My first one is youth who play video games do not have violent intentions because of the game. My second secondary claim is video games serve purposes that are not related to violence. And my third secondary claim is there's little correlation between links of violent video games and violent crimes being committed. So my first claim is that youth who play video games do not have violent intentions because of the game. I'll be referencing to the Columbine shooting. The Columbine shooting is 2 Columbine students go in there, they massacre anything in sight, and then they commit suicide in the library. So there's an argument that people attributed these shootings because the 2 perpetrators, they played video games, but then after further investigation by the FBI psychiatrists and psychologists, they concluded that Eric Harris, one of the shooters, was a psychopath, and Dylan Klebold was depressed. And then David Cullen, who's a freelance reporter who followed this case for 10 years, he wrote a book titled Columbine, and it ended on New York Times bestsellers. So he has a lot of credibility. He's been following this for a long time, and he said that they have been bullied in high school, which caused them to be psychopathic or to be depressed. And then according to Cullen, one of Harris's last journal entries read, "I hate you people for leaving me out of so many fun things, and no, don't say, well, that's your fault, because it isn't. You people had my phone number, and I even asked, but no, don't let the weird looking kid Eric come along." So these kids were bullied, and they had problems in high school, and then they developed mental problems because of the bullying, and this is what caused them to go out and shoot up the school. And then another example would be Sandy Hook. The perpetrator, Adam Lanza, had mental problems. After his suicide, the FBI launched a full investigation of the shooting and what happened, and they found out he had Asperger's syndrome, and they also found out that he had no friends and always stayed in his room, and he had a hard time socializing. One of the quotes from his teachers is, "I never saw him with anyone. I can't even think of one person that associated with him." And then what's really weird was when they visited his basement, they found out he played both violent and non-violent games, but then his most favorite game was Super Mario Brothers and Dance Dance Revolution. And Super Mario Brothers is not like Call of Duty or Battlefield, the really violent games, and Dance Dance Revolution is like a dancing game. So I don't know how you can link those video games to the cause of the Sandy Hook shooting. And then moving on to my secondary claim, video games serve purposes that are not related to violence. So there was a Harvard study done by Cheryl K. Olson and Lawrence Kuttner. It was called Grand Theft Childhood. The study surveyed over 1,200 children aged 12 to 14, and this was the largest survey ever done in that age group. And then they asked the kids why they play violent video games, and over 2/3 of the boys and half of the girls said, "It helps me relax." And then the number one reason they gave was because it was fun and exciting, it was entertaining. And over 40% of the boys played because their friends also play. So you might think oh, these are little kids, or these statistics don't matter to me, but even if you ask yourself this, why do I play video games? Oh, because it's fun, I get to bond with my friends, or I could release my stress and aggression just like those kids. The study to those kids can also apply to you if you really in your head just ask yourself, why do I play video games? And my third claim is there's little correlation between links of violent video games and violent crime being committed. Crime rates actually dropped over time, and video game sales increased. And there was a Supreme Court case called Brown versus Entertainment Merchant Association. California banned the sale of violent video games to minors, but it was struck down, and it was struck down because it went against the First Amendment and it protected the freedom of speech because it was argued that video games can portray messages and spread even social messages. No, portray ideas and spread social messages. And when the defendants were asked to provide proof of just a casual link, they were unable to, and this was just a casual link, so there wasn't even a really strong link, and they couldn't even provide the casual one. And then even if they did provide proof, their definition of violence was way too broad, and it wasn't narrow enough for them to have interest on changing it.
All right, well, I thought your attack on the examples is fine, and I think you undermine anybody who is trying to use those as the justification for the claim that violent video games have a negative effect on society. I'm just not sure that there are a lot of people who use Columbine or the Sandy Hook shootings for that particular purpose, and so I'm not sure that that gets you very much. It's your third point where I think there is some question of whether or not there is a dispute here. The only challenge that you have is to information that might have been cited in the court case, but it doesn't reference to any of the other research that's been done on this particular subject and whether or not that research is reliable, consistent, trustworthy, whether or not it uses appropriate techniques. I think that that's where there's a little bit missing. Your proposition has the negative terminology built into it, so that's a little bit problematic. Actually, it's substantially problematic. You did preview the secondary points. I appreciated that. I thought you did a good job on that. Generally, I think people understand what the controversy on this is. You signposted the secondary points where you're speaking pretty clearly. Like I said, I thought you dealt with the examples effectively. You made reference to some statistical relationship between sales and crime, but there's not really any information provided on that. There's no source on that. The FBI psychiatrists that you cited, they're cited in a very vague way. I did think that the author that you cited was a little bit more practical on that particular point that you were presenting. Generally, I think you do a pretty good job citing the information. It did seem strange at the end that you kind of abruptly finished at the end of the third point without any summary or exit line, so it just feels a little bit like everything gets cut off. All right, thank you.